This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to 2,400 documentaries and nonfiction titles free for 1 month by following the link in the description. I'm so excited to be here in Vancouver, Canada. I've been wanting to visit and do a video here for so long. Why? Well, there's a lot of city planning hype surrounding Vancouver. Allow me to demonstrate. Here's what you get when you search for Vancouver is the on Google. You get autocompletes like best city in the world and best place to live and most livable city. To prove this isn't what Google says about every city, here's what you get when you search for Memphis, the poorest city and the most dangerous city. Ouch. Nothing but love for Memphis though. Sorry to call you out. But there is a difference is I guess what I'm saying. Countless articles have been written about how great Vancouver is. It's been called the best city in Canada, the most livable city in North America, the greatest city on Earth, and tied for the best city in the Milky Way, probably. Vancouver's success is no accident, but a result of decades of thoughtful planning and design, collectively known as Vancouverism. What is Vancouverism exactly, and can other cities harness it to dethrone Vancouver as one of the best places to live in the world? Let's take a walk and find out. When you walk around central Vancouver, it really does look and feel unlike any other city out there. But back in the 1980s, Vancouver was pretty much just an ordinary North American city. City leaders and planners consciously changed the way they planned and designed their city to get this style of urbanism. I said pretty much an ordinary city because those planners were lucky to inherit a city with some good bones. First of all, the city is situated in just a beautiful area. Most cities don't have mountains and water like this so close. Second, previous generations made some good decisions about how to design Vancouver. For example, Vancouver has some extremely narrow residential streets. The entire right-of-way is only 66 feet wide, with about 28 to 36 feet for vehicles. And in the 1970s, Vancouver residents protested the construction of freeways within the city limits. This occurred at about the same time as San Francisco's freeway revolts halted construction there, but San Francisco only halted the construction of the new highways after a few had been built. This left Vancouver as the only major North American city without highways, and it made it difficult for cars to take over. So it's a normal city, save for one important abnormality, the lack of highways. It's one of the major reasons Vancouver went down a different path. Planners in the 1980s were looking at significant growth and suburbanization with no efficient way of getting residents to work downtown. The public didn't support new highways and mass transit was expensive. They didn't have funds to build new lines everywhere. If you can't connect people's home to work, what do? You put their home and work in the same place, or at least within cycling, walking, and transit distance. This is a solution that has a lot of benefits. More trips can be made by walking and cycling. Transit becomes more popular, which can be used to justify greater frequencies and more lines. And even if a resident chooses to commute by car, the trip is shorter, easing congestion. There are two major challenges that needed to be solved to make this happen. One, how to convince people who would otherwise choose to live in the suburbs to move to the central city instead. And two, how to revitalize downtown Vancouver, a typical 80s downtown in decline. The solution, if you haven't guessed it already, was Vancouverism. I'm back here in the City Beautiful studios, what my family likes to call the living room, after my trip to Vancouver. I have a lot to say about my visit, but let's start with the basics. What is the definition of Vancouverism? There's a lot to say. There's a whole book about Vancouverism, and I'm not going to get to all of this. I'm going to focus on the most novel part, the urban design. And I'm going to further narrow the scope. The cool urban design is largely limited to a few areas of central Vancouver. It's mostly in the False Creek, Yaletown, and Cole Harbour areas. They were former industrial sites that were ripe for redevelopment in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Let me introduce you to one of the key pieces of Vancouverism, the Point Tower. One way of thinking of the Point Tower is a building with two parts, the podium and the tower. It's sort of like you merged a thin condo tower with a mid-rise building. Why would you design a building like this? The condo tower provides residential density, and the units themselves command beautiful views of the surroundings, making them attractive to those who wouldn't necessarily want to live in a high-rise normally. Views are one thing lots of suburban homes don't have. The city of Vancouver regulated the size of the towers and their placement to preserve view corridors. The city even went so far as to regulate the size and placement of towers to create an attractive skyline, on purpose. They identified blocks that would be good places for towers of additional height, punctuating the skyline of relatively uniform point towers. The idea was that the skyline could be urban design as public art. The mid-rise section of the building is designed to create vibrant street life. The mid-rise building is at a great scale to frame the street in an attractive way. Many of the towers are wrapped with townhouses with doors that open directly onto the sidewalk. This makes the city feel very human-scaled. The condo tower, set back from the street, is not as noticeable. The townhouse is an attractive home type for families, and the point towers added thousands of them to the downtown housing market. The townhomes are often wrapped around a parking garage. Parking garages are required to be hidden or below ground in Vancouver. These towers stand in contrast to Le Corbusier's towers in a park that in reality often turned into towers in a parking lot. They also differ from the tower and windswept plaza that was often built in post-war North American cities. These point towers create vibrant streets and add significant density. Point towers weren't built everywhere, though. Sometimes the density wasn't appropriate or needed, and just the mid-rise housing was built. The Athletes' Village from the 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics, now just regular housing, is a great example of this. I want to pause this video for 1 second to tell you about a great channel all about the city of Vancouver. So if you're liking this video, I recommend checking out the channel About Here.
Hey Dave. Hey guys. Hope you don't mind me hijacking this video for just a little bit. But yeah, like Dave was mentioning, I've got a YouTube channel called About Here where I cover urban planning issues in my city. If you love Dave's, wonderful high quality analysis of issues surrounding our cities, I hope you don't mind checking out my channel after this video. Finish this video first, but then afterwards, open that tab up, check me out.
Okay, back to our regularly scheduled video. So these point towers give us residential density and attractive streetscapes, but streets aren't enough open space for so many people. Vancouver has the stunning Stanley Park, but it's far from much of the city. If the goal is to attract families, there needs to be a large number of neighborhood parks with playgrounds. The city offered density bonuses to developers who set aside parkland where there was a deficiency. Basically, developers could build a taller building in exchange for a park. The city also built water parks, community centers, and water's edge exploration areas so kids wouldn't get bored. The city once had a policy of separating parks from schoolyards, but there wasn't enough space in central Vancouver for both. They changed the policy and now parks do double duty. Here's an example of an elementary school in central Vancouver next to its park schoolyard. Okay, so now we have our point tower buildings on beautiful streets near a diversity of park amenities. Let's talk about transportation for a second. It's the piece that might have impressed me the most when I was in Vancouver. Vancouver has an extensive network of protected bicycle lanes and multi-use paths that make it easy to get places without worrying about cars. Check out this path that goes along the edge of Falls Creek. It has a separate area for pedestrians and a two-way cycle track. The path is so busy, this kind of separation is necessary. The path acts as sort of a main street to the Falls Creek area, and homes and shops open out onto it. Roads here don't generally continue all the way to the waterfront, meaning residents living in buildings near to Falls Creek can go for kilometers without even encountering a car. This means it's safe for kids to run around without much supervision. When I was there, I noticed groups of 10, 12, 14-year-old kids wandering around without parents. I definitely don't see this in downtown Sacramento where I live, and I rarely see it in the suburbs either, honestly. This commitment to active transportation is also a necessity. Many of the units in high-rise towers don't have parking spaces, meaning residents have to use transit, bikes, or walking to get where they're going. And with tens of thousands of residential units in downtown, there's just not enough space for everyone to have one or more cars. Vancouver had to resort to alternatives to create density without gridlock traffic. Today, approximately 50% of trips in Vancouver are made on transit, bike, or walking. Only a handful of North American cities see that percentage of non-car trips. So it's not hard to see why other cities would want to emulate Vancouverism. It's very market-friendly. Nearly all the projects are market-rate private developments. It's also climate-friendly. You have people living in dense urban areas using active transportation. And it's popular among residents, too. It's really win-win-win. But I don't want to let Vancouver off the hook that easily. There are still plenty of critiques of Vancouverism, and the biggest one is affordability. Vancouver is one of the most expensive metro areas to live in relative to median incomes. One would think that adding tens of thousands of housing units downtown would increase supply enough to neutralize housing prices, but it hasn't. The housing affordability crisis is complicated and not limited to Vancouver, but in some cases Vancouverism exacerbated the problem. For example, Concord Pacific Place is one of the largest master-planned urban communities in North America, built on a former rail yards. Its thousands of units were marketed simultaneously in Vancouver and Hong Kong, and its first units were sold out fast due to strong interest in Asia. This obviously undercuts the goals of Vancouverism, with its promise of housing potential Vancouver suburbanites. It also points to a larger problem in Vancouver, where wealthy foreign buyers snatch up all the housing, pricing out the local residents. In response to this problem, Vancouver imposed a 20% tax on foreign home buyers. The city also recently introduced a speculation tax on owners who don't pay income taxes in British Columbia and don't live in homes they buy. The measures have had some limited success, but it may only be temporary. And the overall issue remains. When Vancouverism buildings are built, the market rate units are often affordable only to out-of-town buyers. Vancouver has built social housing, but the number of units isn't high enough to meet demand, and the rents for the affordable units are often still too high for those who need it most. You only have to walk a few blocks from Falls Creek and Yaletown to see the streets lined with Vancouver's homeless, a stark reminder that Vancouverism isn't working for everyone. This also highlights another critique of Vancouverism. While most of Vancouver feels like a normal city, charming but a little rough around the edges and spots, the Vancouverism districts feel almost unnaturally clean and well kept. The prescriptive urban design combined with a modern architectural aesthetic makes the whole area feel kind of monotonous. In some ways, Vancouverism has achieved the goal of bringing the suburbs downtown. It's clean, safe, and filled with families, but it can also be affluent, cookie cutter, and exclusive. So that's Vancouverism. As someone who studies urban design, my trip to Vancouver was just amazing. The city has designed entire districts according to cutting-edge urban design principles, and the result are vibrant public spaces and a beautiful city. But a beautiful city for whom? Like a lot of cities, Vancouver hasn't figured out how to make a good city for everyone. What we need is a Vancouverism 2.0, one that focuses on equity for Vancouver to truly be the best place to live in the world. So I recently did a viewer survey, thanks to all who participated, and when I asked about who else you all watch on YouTube, I saw a lot of people mentioning creators like Wendover Productions, CGP Grey, Real Engineering, and Lindsay Ellis. Did you know that me, all of those creators, and many other educational creators teamed up to build Nebula, a streaming video service for education-y content? We also teamed up with the fantastic documentary video service CuriosityStream to bundle a subscription to Nebula and CuriosityStream for one low annual subscription price of $19.99 or $2.99 per month. For that price, you get CuriosityStream's vast library of high-quality documentary films by the likes of Stephen Hawking, David Attenborough, Jane Goodall, and more. And you're also supporting dozens of high-quality educational creators on Nebula. Many of these creators are putting out Nebula Originals, special series that you can only get over on that service. There's a great series going on right now where different creators discuss their favorite movie and TV intro sequences. To get both amazing streaming video services for an exceedingly low price, visit curiositystream.com/citybeautiful. It's probably the best deal in online video you can get right now, and it supports so many great independent creators, including City Beautiful. So thanks for considering it.